He didn't even have to touch Conor McGregor to steal his spotlight. In fact, all Paddy Pimblett had to do was walk out, finish his fight faster than the biggest star in the sport, and let the entire arena do the rest. And now, one of the most respected voices in the sport, UFC veteran Matt Brown, is saying something that should stop every MMA fan in their tracks. What Pimblett just did looks eerily, unmistakably like the exact blueprint Conor McGregor used to become the biggest star this sport has ever seen. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Brown is comparing this to lightning in a bottle. Why McGregor's disastrous night may have accidentally created the UFC's next superstar. And why, despite all of that, even Brown isn't fully convinced Pimblett is championship material just yet. Welcome back to the channel, bringing you every major story shaking up the UFC and MMA world, from the biggest names in the sport straight to your feed, wherever you're watching from, the US, the UK, Canada, and right across Europe. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button now, because we cover the stories behind the headlines, not just the headlines themselves. And if you've got a second before we continue, smash that like button. It costs nothing, takes 1 second, and helps this video reach a lot more fight fans just like you. Now let's get into exactly what happened at UFC 329, because this was one of the wildest nights of the year for very different reasons than anyone expected. UFC 329 was supposed to be about one man, Conor McGregor, finally making his long-awaited return to the octagon against Max Holloway. The build-up was massive. The viewership numbers were enormous. Every eye in the combat sports world was locked onto that comeback. And then, in a moment nobody wanted to see, it all fell apart in 69 seconds. McGregor blew out his knee early in the fight, and what was supposed to be a career-defining return instead ended in devastating injury. Whatever was going to happen in that fight, we'll never know. McGregor was already a sizable underdog heading in, and even without the injury, there was a very real chance the night could have ended in defeat regardless. But here's the thing about a stacked UFC card. When the top of the bill stumbles, sometimes it's the undercard that ends up writing the real story of the night. And that's exactly what happened. On the very same card, Paddy Pimblett stepped in against Benoit Denis, and what followed was nothing short of sensational. Pimblett finished Denis with a modified Darce choke, and he did it in less time than it took McGregor's fight to even get going. The crowd, already electric from the McGregor build-up, erupted the second Pimblett walked out, and then erupted again even louder once his hand was raised. In a single night, with millions of eyes already locked onto that arena because of McGregor, Pimblett delivered arguably the biggest performance of his entire career. And it didn't go unnoticed. Appearing on The Fighter vs. the Writer, UFC legend Matt Brown didn't hold anything back when describing what he witnessed. He said Pimblett stole the show, plain and simple, that it was Pimblett's night through and through, and that he fully lived up to the moment with what Brown called an amazing finish on Denis. Brown went further, praising not just the performance but Pimblett's entire approach right now, saying he's doing all the right things, saying all the right things, and that whatever success comes his way at this point, he's earned it. That alone would be a solid piece of praise from a respected veteran. But then Brown said something that turned this into a much bigger conversation, something that's now got the entire MMA community talking. He described scrolling through Instagram and randomly coming across a clip of comedian Bill Burr talking about how comedians build their careers. Burr's point, as Brown explained it, was about opening acts, how a comedian can make it by going out before the headliner and performing so well, so explosively, that the crowd is exhausted by the time the main act comes out, and the headliner ends up bombing simply because the opener left nothing on the table. The second Brown heard that, it clicked for him instantly. That, he said, was exactly what Pimblett did at UFC 329. He stole the show. It was his night. McGregor's comeback fell apart, and Pimblett, in Brown's words, did it right. Brown didn't stop there either. He talked about the reaction in the arena and across the fanbase, saying he doesn't think he's ever seen anything quite like the energy Pimblett generated that night, fans singing his song, dancing, completely locked into the excitement of the moment. And then, once the fight actually started, Pimblett backed all of that hype up by finishing the job exactly the way everyone wanted to see. Brown summed it up with a comparison that's going to follow Pimblett for a long time now. Lightning in a bottle, and a feeling that reminded him unmistakably of Conor McGregor in his earliest, most explosive days climbing the featherweight ranks. And if you think about it, the comparison isn't just about hype and crowd energy, it's about the blueprint itself. Before McGregor became a two-division champion, before he became the biggest pay-per-view draw in the sport's history, he had doubters, plenty of them. People said the trash talk was empty, that the charisma would only carry him so far, that eventually a real killer in the division would expose him. And then he stepped in against Jose Aldo, one of the most dominant featherweight champions the sport had ever seen, and finished him in seconds to become UFC champion for the first time. Not long after, he moved up and did the same thing to Eddie Alvarez, becoming the first fighter in UFC history to hold two divisional titles at the same time. The doubt didn't disappear because of the talk. It disappeared because, when it mattered most, McGregor backed every bit of it up inside the cage. That's the real weight behind what Matt Brown is suggesting here. He's not just saying Pimblett had a good night. He's saying the pattern, the charisma, the crowd behind him, the ability to deliver on the biggest stage even when he's not the headliner, mirrors the exact formula that turned McGregor into a global superstar. That's an enormous statement to make about any fighter, let alone one who's still building toward his first real championship opportunity. Before we get into whether Brown actually thinks Pimblett is ready for a title shot, let me ask you this. Drop a comment below and tell me, does this UFC 329 performance genuinely remind you of early McGregor? Or do you think that comparison is getting ahead of itself? I want to see this discussion in the comments, so scroll down and let me know exactly where you stand. And if you're enjoying this breakdown so far, go ahead and hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more fans who love this kind of deep dive content. Now here's where things get interesting, because despite everything Brown said about Pimblett stealing the show and delivering lightning-in-a-bottle energy, he stopped noticeably short of calling him championship material. That's a crucial distinction, and it's worth sitting with for a second. Brown clearly respects what Pimblett accomplished, the finish, the composure, the way he handled an enormous spotlight that was never technically supposed to be his that night. But being the most electric, most talked-about performer on a card is a completely different question from being ready to run through the murderer's row that exists at the top of the lightweight division right now. Brown's praise wasn't hollow, but it also wasn't a blank check. It was the kind of endorsement that says, keep going, prove it again, and then we'll talk about a title shot. And that's really the tension at the heart of this entire story. Pimblett has undeniably built one of the most passionate, most vocal fan bases in the entire UFC. Every time he walks out, it feels like an event. Every time he wins, it feels bigger than just 2 points on a record. That's an incredibly rare and valuable thing in this sport. Most fighters spend their entire careers trying to build that kind of connection with an audience and never quite get there. But the lightweight division doesn't hand out title shots for crowd energy alone. It's arguably the deepest, most dangerous division in the entire promotion, loaded with killers who have spent years clawing toward a championship opportunity of their own. For Pimblett to actually turn this UFC 329 moment into a genuine title run, he doesn't just need one more highlight reel performance. He needs to prove it consistently, against the kind of opposition that doesn't leave any room for hype to carry the result. Still, it's hard to overstate what this night did for his career trajectory. Walking into UFC 329, Pimblett was already one of the promotion's most popular fighters. Walking out of it, with McGregor's comeback ending in injury and heartbreak, and with Pimblett delivering exactly the kind of statement performance that gets replayed for years, he arguably walked out of that arena as one of the biggest stars in the entire sport. Whether or not that translates into an immediate title shot, the business side of the UFC has never been shy about rewarding fighters who can move numbers and fill arenas. And after UFC 329, there's a very real argument that Pimblett is doing exactly that. There's also something worth noting about the timing of all of this. McGregor's return was supposed to dominate every headline coming out of that event, and instead, because of the injury, the story shifted entirely. That's the kind of moment careers get built on being in the right place, delivering the right performance at exactly the right time. Pimblett didn't plan for McGregor to get hurt, and to his credit, he didn't need the misfortune of another fighter to justify his own performance. He beat a genuinely dangerous opponent in Benoit Denis, and he did it in dominant fashion. But there's no denying that the chaos around him on fight night amplified everything he accomplished, turning a very good win into a career-altering moment. Where does this leave Pimblett going forward? If Brown's comparison to early McGregor holds any weight, the blueprint is already right there in front of him. Keep winning, keep bringing that same energy, and let the championship conversation build naturally rather than forcing it. McGregor didn't get his first title shot because people simply liked him. He earned it by dismantling elite competition until the promotion had no choice but to give him the opportunity. If Pimblett wants to complete that same story, this UFC 329 win isn't the finish line. It's the moment the conversation officially started. So here's what I want to know from you before we wrap up. Do you think Paddy Pimblett has genuine title potential in one of the toughest divisions in the sport? Or do you think Matt Brown is right to hold back on that kind of endorsement for now? And does the McGregor comparison feel earned after this performance? Or is it simply too early to make that call? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to see this conversation take off. That's everything Matt Brown said about Paddy Pimblett's incredible night at UFC 329, why he's drawing comparisons to Conor McGregor's early career, and why, even with all that praise, he's not ready to call Pimblett a champion just yet. This story is far from over, and however this title conversation develops, you can count on this channel to bring you every update the moment it happens. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you for watching through. It genuinely helps this channel more than you might realize. Hit that like button right now if you enjoyed this breakdown. Subscribe if you haven't already so you never miss a major UFC story, and drop a comment letting me know exactly where you stand on Pimblett's title chances. We've got a lot more breakdowns and fighter reactions coming very soon, so stay subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.